Welcome to Decrypt, Asia's first blockchain and cryptocurrency podcast. I'm your host, Tushar. Each week, we take a deep dive into the Asian blockchain scene with investors, technologists, and industry insiders. Go to decrypt.asia to subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Telegram to join in the discussions. Welcome to the show, Zhang.
Hello. Thank you for inviting.
Could you tell us a little bit about your background, when and how you got involved with cryptocurrencies and what that journey's been like?
Well, I'm personally Taiwanese born, but Taiwanese born Canadian, and I actually lived my whole life in Poland, most of my life in Poland. And well, I have had quite interesting business life actually in the past. I helping my family business, and then after 8 years of supporting the business, I listed in Poland in Warsaw Stock Exchange. And after that, in the meanwhile, I also did an educational program called Tsinghua and INSEAD EMBA. It's a dual degree EMBA program that I traveled between Beijing and Singapore and Fontainebleau in INSEAD. After that, after I graduated in 2015, I decided that I wanted to move to Asia to develop my further career. And I stepped into this sector last year. And luckily enough, I got interested with blockchain already mid last year, and then being active since then. So it's been, let's say, a bit more than a year already. And the journey has been great. I mean, I was very happy and very glad that I joined, and I was actually got into the bullish market and now into the bear market. So experiencing both the highs and lows.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound like you've had quite a career. I mean, born in Taiwan, grew up in Canada.
I'm Canadian Taiwanese, but I grew up in Poland.
Okay, so you grew up in Poland. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, interesting. And taking your company public, I mean, I'm sure that would have been quite an experience. So let's dive into JRR Crypto. So high level speaking, could you tell us a little bit more about JRR? How did you guys come about, and what do you guys exactly do?
Well, JRR do spend most of its time. It's a Swiss registered fund. We do spend most of our time doing investment at this stage. We do investment in two sectors. One, what we call the ecosystem. And the ecosystem, we divided up the whole blockchain's ecosystem into 8 pillars, all the way from incubators, consultancy, investment bankers, medias, exchanges, wealth management, fund of fund, and I think that's 8 already by now. Sorry. So that's what we call the ecosystem part. And then we also do the crypto projects. We do spend, I say, 70-80% of our time within the ecosystem part, and only 20 to 30% of the time in crypto projects. But because we do see ecosystem is a long-term investment, and that's where we do see the market. It's more of a long-term value.
All right, that is quite interesting. So let's talk about this fund. How are you guys structured? Do you guys take outside money, or is it mostly the capital of the partners that are part of JRR?
It's most of the capital from the partners at this stage.
Okay, and do you intend to take outside capital at some point, or are you happy kind of keeping it?
Well, we feel very comfortable right now with our own fund, and then the structure is simpler. However, we do consider in the near future perhaps would cooperate with others, creating a larger pool of LPs.
Okay, so you said that you kind of in terms very high level speaking, you kind of divide the fund into 2 kinds of investments. One is the ecosystem side, and one is the crypto project side. So let's dive into the ecosystem side a little bit. You mentioned that there are sort of 8 pillars that you focus on. So you would make investments in, like you mentioned, consulting, incubation, exchanges. So you would make investments in consulting companies and incubation companies. Is that what?
Yep. That's what happened. We have invested already 40 plus projects within the ecosystem side.
All right, very interesting. And in terms of geography, do you have any particular preferences in terms of like geographically, where are these companies located, or are they sort of located across the world?
Yeah, located across the world. We actually wanted it to be more global. So for many of the projects, we don't just look for the China or let's say Asian sector. We do look into Europe and North America as well as Australia at this moment.
Okay. And in terms of the ecosystem, I'm presuming that a lot of the investments would be actually equity investments, and because a lot of consulting businesses will not need a token of their own. So are you comfortable holding, taking equity stakes and having a relatively longer term horizon?
Absolutely. Equity is fine with us as well. We don't mind it at all, because the way how we see it is we always focus on the long term. So we don't mind holding equity because we know that the building of the ecosystem, it takes years to do, and once it's built, it's much more stable and it's much more sustainable as well.
Okay. And in terms of the crypto projects, what are some of the mental models or philosophies that you deploy before making an investment decision? Are there any areas within the crypto project side, which you mentioned is 20 to 30% of your portfolio, which you find particularly exciting?
For last couple of months, we do focus in almost all sectors. We did not cut down any sectors because the market was quite okay. It was performing quite well. In terms of the method, I think we do focus a lot on its, of course, the market price value, because very often they are overpriced. That's for one. For two, we do spend a lot of time checking on the teams, because we know it's by the end of the day, it is the team, the people that makes the project work. And the three is we do spend time checking into these token economics as well, because we know that it has to be applicable for the users, either it's business users or consumer users, and then the token economics must make sense. So these are the three couple of key points that we do look into.
All right, interesting. So I see on your website that you have certain projects listed as part of your portfolio. So there's Multivac, SAP, there's Blockchain, Wax. So is this the 20 to 30% part of your portfolio, which is the crypto projects that you've invested in?
That's right.
Okay. And so in terms of the ecosystem side, are you able to kind of talk a little bit more about the kind of companies that you've invested in? Because I don't think that's on your website, right?
Not all of them, yes. For the reason that we did not keep all of the ecosystem equity investment on the website is because we do want those firms to focus on on delivering their products, their value.
Okay. And so you're not able to talk about these companies, is it?
No, I can. I mean, so it's okay for us to talk about the reason that we did not publish all of them on the website, just because, we don't want, we wanted to focus on the products rather than refocusing of the 2 months of investment into next fundraise, right? So some of this equity investment that we did is actually one of the most well-known and has brought out the best return is Binance.
Yep.
So we are Binance's second biggest equity shareholder at this moment. So we did invest a lot in exchanges earlier. And afterwards, we did spend a lot of time analyzing wallets.
Okay. Any other, so beyond exchanges and wallets, I mean, I'm very curious.
I mean, we did. I mean, we have invested also a lot in incubation, in investment banking teams. Right, because we know that the part of FA, in order to support the project to fundraise, is a very important part. So that's how we see we add value, right? I mean, we invest in a project, and if the project needs funding support, we provide it further on to the investment banker that we invested in, and the teams will try to deliver it to the end. And then after they finish their fundraise, we connect them with the exchanges that we have invested, and then the wheel starts spinning, right?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to put it. And I think, I kind of agree with your approach as well, where today it's very difficult to just be a fund. I think you got to have multiple verticals that you focus on. And there are a few ways of going about it, right? Either you can develop those capabilities internally, or you can, like you guys have done, kind of be investors in multiple verticals and create that ecosystem.
That's true. That's what we did. And I think it's working quite well. And I know that a lot of funds later on also spend a bit more time on the strategic part and the ecosystem part besides just a quick in and quick out on the crypto projects.
Yeah. And so I know that you're based out of China. In general, I do not have a very detailed idea of what the market in terms of the blockchain and cryptocurrency ecosystem looks like in China. Could you elaborate a little bit more on, where most of the development is taking place as far as China is concerned?
Well, within China, I mean, with exchanges, there are a bunch. Just because of the large population there is in China, so you have a lot of exchanges. But many of them are pretty well known and old already by now, such as OK, Huobi. I mean, it's all pretty good brand and are out there. And with the ecosystem here in China developed quite fast.
Yeah,
but it got really cold now in the last couple of weeks or even a month or two, but I would say, because the market is really, really bearish.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just curious, why do you think the Chinese exchanges have done so well? I'm just curious because some of the biggest brand names out there in terms of exchanges are actually Chinese exchanges. Like, what do you think the Chinese exchanges do well that some of the other exchanges are not able to do that well?
I think it's just because of the market size.
Okay.
Because the population is big, so.
Okay. And so I know we were having this chat just before we got on this call in terms of how you guys, so beyond being a fund, you guys are also sort of work in an advisory capacity or sometimes in a co-founding capacity as well. Could you talk a little bit about how you guys get involved in the ecosystem as part of being a quote unquote accelerator or incubator?
Okay, well, we started with everything with investment, right? Both in ecosystem and the crypto project side. However, we soon realized that many of these projects needed extra support. Many funds within China and out have developed themselves downstream. I mean, upstream or downstream, depending on how you look at it. They develop themselves into an incubation or an investment banker. So they become FA agent, or basically they help projects all the way from the start to the end. So they incubate them. We did not see that as our role, because for both either incubation and FA is quite short. It usually lasts a month, 2 or 3 max. And then throughout that, after the project is already, I guess, more matured, very often the fund that helped them wanted to sell in the market, and the project has to pick it up. So they become a buy side and sell side against each other. And we saw that it's quite to be. I mean, it's like you give birth to a kid. After a couple of months, you start fighting against it, and that's not what we see the real value of cooperation lies. So we decided to do develop 2 new extremes. One extreme is what we call super advisory. It does provide a lot of support for the project, but under the consideration that we have invested in them already. And then if they need some PR support, media support, marketing support, or even partially fundraise support, we would help them. And of course, we would receive some kind of benefit for it. However, now this is like a commitment based, like an investment banker or FA. It's really more of an advisory role. And on the other side, besides incubation, what we do heavier is what we call co-founding. We really select the team and the project carefully, and then once we go into it, we treat ourselves as a co-founding, and we wouldn't want to exit the project, but I guess at least for a year or 2, because we want to see the final value created after a year. So it's much more long term, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating approach as well, and I kind of see that happening more and more. I think as we progress and as the ecosystem matures. So in general, are there any projects that you're co-founding at the moment, as you mentioned?
We are working with a couple of them right now, because the concept came in 2 months ago, and we are working with them closely right now. all the way from designing token economics and stuff. We've been quite strict, actually, as a matter of fact, on how the whole thing should work. So and the projects still are at early stage and would prefer probably to be disclosed at this stage.
Okay, so you cannot disclose about the project at the moment, right?
Yeah, not yet. Give us a couple of weeks.
Okay, and in terms of the super advisory side, any projects in particular that you're advising at the moment, or is that kind of under the wraps?
We did. I mean, it goes on and off. I mean, there's a super advisor. It's just really supporting the project we invested, right? So like even Multivac, we invested in them earlier. We've been helping them around a lot too. Yeah. Argo from Korea, we also been helping them around a lot too. I mean, this is really, this is all going on and off. That's all right.
So I want to talk about your roadmap a little bit. What are your biggest priorities right now for JRR? Is there anything that is there anything in particular that you're focusing on in the next kind of 12 to 18 months?
Yeah. Well, we aren't sure how long the bear market will last. I mean, no one can really tell. So what I've been driving internally is that I'm encouraging internal teams to try. I gave them 3 tasks. Trying small steps, try to discover new things, new methods, new ideas, and control the risk, right? So that's for 1. For 2, well, everyone has to remind the cost. We need to make sure the costs are maintained at a certain level, and we make sure we get to the bullish market. And the third thing is, I do demand the teams now to study more, to analyze more, and to do more researches to build our own understanding level. So there are 3 things that we mainly focus right now for the next couple of months, and we are in process of reselecting which sectors will be investing again heavily for next year, and the outcome will come out in a month's time. We are going through a very deep discussion every week.
Okay, I think that sounds pretty interesting. Before we finish off, I just want to get your outlook on the blockchain ecosystem in general. Are there any areas of development that particularly excite you?
I think it's a hot topic right now of STOs.
Yeah,
and I did also say I think there's more talking about STOs than its real functionality at this stage, because everyone has been talking about it. However, we do discover recently. I mean, I'm trying to actually inform the market that STO is now a replacement of an ICO. It is, in my opinion, it's actually a dual token system. Every project should have an ICO and should have a utility token part. They would cooperate with each other, targeting different holders base. Utility token are targets for the application users perspective. How needed the tokens are there are for the product, and STO refers to the fiat income of the company in terms of the equity and shares and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair way to kind of think about it. I think my thought process is kind of along similar lines as well, where you have a utility token which is actually to use the platform, whereas the shareholders, the quote unquote shareholders or the token holders who hold the security tokens are actually part of the profit sharing.
Yeah, because I think it got a bit mixed up last year. Yeah, where people basically did everything in one basket.
Yeah.
But then coming into the day, I think it's a time for everyone to cool down thanks to this bear market and really refocus, re-understand, and I believe there will be a big value change between the 2 parts, and there should be 2 separate rounds. Yeah.
Any last comments from your end?
No, I think that I could. Yeah.
Yeah. Where can people follow JRR's developments? What's the best platform?
It's on JRRcrypto.io. That's our website. Even though we are developing a new website right now, as a matter of fact. And for those in China, we do have the WeChat account, actually.
Okay, interesting. I mean, we can always link up your website as well as the WeChat account. I think that's a great note to end this interview. Czhang, thank you very much for coming on the show. It was
thank you very much
pleasure
for your invitation.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Telegram, and subscribe to our newsletter on decrypt.asia. This is your host, Tushar. Thank you for listening.